And good afternoon, producer Susan. How was your Labor Day weekend?
It was good, Jersey Joe. How was yours?
Beautiful, cool weather. Just did some stuff around the house, some outdoor stuff that it was too hot to do in August.
Yep.
Did home repairs, stayed off the highways. How
Yep.
about yourself?
I
How
don't know if
about,
you can see I'm covered in paint splatter.
and I know how you spent Saturday afternoon.
Yep. Yep.
You went,
Watching a high school football game.
well, it was actually a college game, but it was more like was it 47 to what with the second
We let them score a touchdown in the last 30 seconds. I think it was 41 to 11.
41 to 11 with the Pens, and that was against Nevada. So
Yep, Nevada.
when's the next game? Is that going to be a snooze?
This weekend is Florida Internationals this weekend.
Home or away?
Home.
Home. Okay, so two home games in a row. All right. Well, as you probably just figured out, today's September 2nd, the day after Labor Day.
Yeah,
So it's
today
one
is the
day
Mondayest Tuesday.
Tuesday. And school is back in session. All the freshmen are on campus trying to
Yep.
figure out where the building is for their
Well,
class.
actually, this is the second week. Classes started on August 25th.
Oh,
So,
all right, came in early. Okay.
yeah.
So, all right. So they finally figured out their way around. Gotcha.
Yep.
All
Well,
right.
we hope so anyway.
All right. Hey, before we get into the agenda, just some late breaking news. And I know I asked you this just before we came on air, but did you hear how many people got shot in Chicago this weekend?
I did not hear anything, but I'm gonna guess there was probably maybe a half a dozen or so.
Well, the reason I asked you is because I checked CBS, ABC, NBC. There was no national news reporting of this story. And this is why we call this situation with Jersey Joe news in perspective you won't hear on TV. Now, what would you guess if I asked you how many got shot and and how many got wounded and how many got killed? What would be your guess for a 3-day weekend?
Uh, I'm gonna say 10 got shot and two were killed.
How about 50 wounded and 8 fatalities?
Oh my God, that's crazy. And we
That's
didn't hear about this on the news today.
no, and that's again, this is why you listen to the show, because you won't hear about this stuff. How can I mean talk about a disaster? 50 people shot and wounded, 8 people killed. Now, let me tell you how that compares to last year. Last year, only 20, last year they had 7 fatalities, but only 20 people wounded. This year they went from 20 wounded to 50 wounded. And, Trump is talking about, sending in the National Guard to help Chicago. And well, clearly the city of Chicago not only don't they have it under control, it's not even close to being under control. So at what point do they say, help? We
Yeah, and,
need help.
and I don't understand why are people so opposed to the National Guard coming into to places like DC and other places to help secure the streets. Why
Well,
are people opposed to this?
they shouldn't be. By the way, the governor, J.B. Pritzker, who, by the way, is heir to the Hyatt Hotel fortune, he
Yeah.
could easily request, and we're actually going to play a clip from 60 years ago where a governor of another Midwestern state actually asked the president, please send in the National Guard. We need your help. So that's a
Mhm.
great question. Why is why are the governors of these blue states opposed? I mean, if you've got, remember, this is 72 hours. This is 3 days. You've got 8 people killed and 50 in the hospital. 50, that's almost just a hair shy of 20 people a day getting shot in just one
Mhm.
of your cities, not the whole state, just one of your cities, and you think you have it under control?
Yeah.
God. So,
I don't understand the outrage of people not wanting the National Guard in some of these cities to help.
right. And let me tell you, and the first story we're gonna cover is how effective it's been in Washington, D.C. I've got some stats now that it's been almost 3 weeks. And then, as I teased, we will compare that to another deployment of the National Guard that happened 57 years ago this year. Um, one of the big tragic stories last week was the Minneapolis church shooter.
Yes.
Well, we're going to tell you what he wrote about his decision to transition from a man to a woman, and it's
Mhm.
really tragic. When you learn what he wrote, it makes it even more of a tragedy because it clearly was preventable. Remember a couple of weeks ago we talked to the doorbell ditching prank
Yeah.
where people ring. I said, sooner or later somebody's going to die.
Yep.
Well, guess what? Somebody died.
Ugh.
You didn't hear about that either.
I did not hear about that. I heard about another stupid death of people shooting each other in the head wearing helmets, and one of the kids died. Did you hear that
I
one?
no, I didn't hear
Oh,
that. Ugh. Where did that take place?
I don't remember. I'll have to look it up and send you the link. But yeah, a bunch of kids thought it would be funny to shoot each other in the head while wearing helmets, and one
With
of them
like a
got
nine
killed.
millimeter?
I don't know the details of the story. I'll have to look it up and send it to you.
Okay. All right. By the way, I know you were an earth science major. Did you know that there's going to be a full lunar eclipse on the night of September 7th?
Oh, I didn't know that.
But guess what? You're not going to be able to see it, and I'll tell you why. And by the way, it's going to be a blood moon that night too. You know what a blood moon is, right? Red moon.
Hmm.
Well, there's going to be a full lunar eclipse, but you're not going to be able to see it, and I'll tell you why. Um, going back to that, uh, every time there's a mass shooting, people say it's the guns. We need to get rid of the guns. Well, we're going to draw a comparison um, to to people how react to to shooting tragedies, to how we reacted as a nation to the events of 9/11. Um, Tell you another story you didn't hear on the national news. Back in 2.5 years ago, remember Gavin Newsom was bragging about how they were going to have a budget surplus. Well, we're going to tell you what happened to that brag and how it not only didn't turn into a surplus, it turned into a massive deficit and why you didn't hear about it. Um, and then by the way, you ever hear people, well, I'm Irish American, I'm African American, I'm Polish American. Well, we're going to go back 100 years to tell you what President Teddy Roosevelt had to say about people who identify themselves as hyphenated Americans. Have you ever identified yourself as a hyphenated American?
Yeah, yeah.
Polish American? What?
Polish American, Irish American.
Okay. All right. And by the way, our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Washington State, where a woman living alone shoots and kills an intruder in her home at 2 a.m. I'm sure he didn't have any bad intentions, right? Breaking into her house at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
All right.
sure.
All right. So we just talked about Chicago. Let's talk about Washington, D.C. So on August 11th, which was the day before Trump brought in the National Guard, they had reported 99 year-to-date homicides. Now that was an average of three per week. Again, 99, because August 11th, that was the eighth month, so it
Hmm.
was 7 months in a week. They had
Yeah.
99 homicides, three a week. The next day, President Trump deployed the National Guard to assist the Washington, D.C. police force in patrolling the streets. As of yesterday, which is a day shy of 3 weeks, so did it make a day? Well, in those 3 weeks, in, there were only four new homicides, which is almost just over one a week instead of three a week, and a 75% decrease from the year-to-date trend that's a 75% decrease. If you go from three a week to one a week, that's a significant drop. And there was ready for this? There was Washington, D.C. has long been known as the carjacking capital of the
Yeah.
country. There has
Hmm.
been an 87% decrease in daily carjackings. And you want to know how many illegal guns they took off the street?
Oh, probably hundreds.
They took 165 illegal guns off the
Hmm.
street. That's 10 a day, 10 a day. So, pretty dramatic. All right. Now, again, liberals say, no, no, yeah, that's terrible, and you shouldn't do that anywhere else. They also call it, by the way, here's a word, you'll hear the term, it's unprecedented to send in the National Guard into a city. Well, probably before your time, you weren't alive in 1967, were you?
No, I wasn't.
I didn't think so. Well, here's President Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, holding a press conference explain to people that he's been called by the governor of Michigan to please, please send in troops. Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing, it's 8 minutes long, but I'll play the first 3 or 4 minutes. Here we go. Of the White House.
In the early morning today, Governor Romney communicated with Attorney General Ramsey Clark and told him of the extreme disorder in Detroit, Michigan. The Attorney General kept me advised throughout the morning. At 10:56 this morning, I received a wire from Governor Romney officially requesting that federal troops be dispatched to Michigan. This wire had been sent at 10:46 a.m. At 11:02 a.m. this morning, I instructed the Secretary of Defense, Mr. McNamara, to initiate the movement of the troops which the governor had requested. At the same time, I advised the governor by telegram that the troops would be.
By the way, advised him by telegram. Back before there were anything like email, right?
Or fax machines.
Right.
Be sent to Selfridge Air Base, just northeast of Detroit, and would be available to support and to assist the some 8,000 Michigan National Guardsmen and the several thousand state and local police under the command of Governor Romney and the mayor of Detroit. I informed the governor that these troops would arrive this afternoon. I also informed the governor that immediately Mr. Cyrus Vance, as special assistant to the Secretary of Defense and others, would proceed to Detroit for conferences with the governor and other appropriate officials. This plan proceeded precisely as scheduled. Approximately 5,000 federal troops were on their way by airlift to Detroit, Michigan, within a few hours. Mr. Vance, General Throckmorton, and others were in Detroit and in conference with Governor Romney.
Well, and I'll end it there. So 5,000 federal troops flown in, help patrol the streets of Detroit. So when people say Trump's use of the National Guard is unprecedented, do these people own a dictionary? Do they know what the meaning of the word?
Apparently not.
Apparently not. So, but guess what? You probably didn't know that either, did you?
No, I did not.
Well, that's why we call it the Wayback Machine. And again, it goes on. And if anyone wants to watch the full clip, listen to the full clip. It's actually a video clip. You can watch it. But that's when the governor said, hey, we're in, by the way, and he already had his own National Guard troops and he had mobilized the state police, but he said, we're being overwhelmed. Please, please come help us. Now, if you were the governor of Illinois and you had 58 people shot in the last 72 hours in one city, wouldn't you be saying, please, please come help us?
Yeah. So why is Chicago not deploying the National Guard?
My point exactly. So again, I think it's more of an issue of, well, by the way, I think if that was Joe Biden still in office, he would Governor Pritzker would absolutely be saying, "Hey, can you send us some National Guard troops?" But because it's Trump, no, he's not going to call Trump and admit that they can't police their own cities. So that was that. All right. Now let's go on to the Minneapolis church shooter and about his decision to transition from a male to a female, and this is really so sad because, and you hear people talk about this. So he confessed in one of his diaries that he was, and this is a quote, tired of being a trans and wished that he had quote never brainwashed himself into thinking that he should become a woman, and he posted that in a manifesto which he posted online before he killed 2 children and wounded 18 others. So, and then I'll go a little in a twisted handwritten journal he shared on YouTube before the massacre. He groaned about his long hair and his decision to transition. He said, I only keep the long hair because it is pretty much my last shred of being a trans. I'm tired of being a trans. I wish I had never brainwashed myself. He wrote according to the Post. So again, here's a guy that now, just before he committed suicide and killed 2 children, said, I screwed up. I brainwashed myself into thinking I should become a woman. And, had his parents gotten him some therapy instead of helping him get his name legally changed, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Right.
This is, and I've said this many, many times, is that all of these shootings relate back to some sort of mental health crisis.
Yeah. And by the way, I think there's been in the past 5 years, there's been 8 mass shootings carried out by people like the one in Tennessee last year at the Covenant Lutheran Church, whatever, that she was a trans also. So, it's sad when you get, almost half the mass shootings in this country being carried out by people, with, transitioning from male to female or female to male.
And this has nothing to do with transgender. This goes back to mental health, though.
Right. And by the way, do you know it's the statistics, and I don't have it at my fingertips, but trust me, I've read these studies. Um, People have undergone transition surgery. Their suicide rate is sky high. It's like
Yeah.
10 times higher than average. And I'm not making this up. I've read these are well peer-reviewed studies. By the way, and the people who have undergone sexual gender, what do they call it?
Reassignment.
Reassignment,
Mhm.
their suicide rate is far higher
Mhm.
than people who have with gender dysphoria who have not had the surgery. So
Mhm.
there's actually two levels. Now, in this case, he had gender dysphoria, but he never had the surgery. But if you go ahead and have the surgery, your chances of committing suicide or being suicidal are even higher. So, so it starts off if you transition, if you have gender dysphoria, your chances of committing suicide are like 5 times the normal. And then if you
Yeah.
go ahead and have the surgery, it's like 10 times normal.
Mhm.
And if anybody's interested, I can dig up the study. But again, I think rather than rushing to get people surgery or hormone therapy, or like his mother took him to court to get his name legally changed,
Mhm.
I think maybe they should have made talk him to see a therapist and see is this really what you want to do?
I mean, if this is what makes you happy and this is what you want to do, do what you need to do to be happy. But I think that counseling needs to be a part of this process.
Yeah,
It needs to be mandatory part of this process.
yeah. Get some counseling and make sure that you're happy with, make sure that you understand where this road is going to take you and that you're happy when you get there,
Mhm.
because clearly the vast majority of people who go down this road find out that they're no happier when they, or even less happy when
Mhm.
they go down that road. And, that's one of the real tragedies. All right. Moving on. So there's going to be a full lunar eclipse this week on a blood moon, and it's going to be spectacular and dramatic, except it'll only be visible over the Asian continent, over China,
Oh,
Africa, India. You won't see it here in the United States. It'll be daylight here, and the moon will be on the other side of the planet, so you won't be able to see it. So,
oh,
so if you hear about the blood moon lunar eclipse on the night of the 7th, which I think is what, Saturday night? Uh,
yes. Yeah.
yes, there's going to be a lunar
Or
eclipse,
no,
but
that's Sunday. Sunday.
Sunday. Well, anyway, there'll be a lunar eclipse, but you won't see it because you'll be on the wrong side of the planet. All right. So, we've been talking about mass shootings and school shootings. So,
Mhm.
after 9/11, yeah, they did some extra stuff in security, but one of the most effective things the government did to prevent a reoccurrence of the takeover an airplane was to simply reinforce the cockpit doors, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So now you just can't, because there used to be no, yeah, I'm sure you've opened a bathroom door on a airplane.
Yeah, they're like it's what do you call that? Like MDF.
What's that?
MDF is like that, like plywood.
Yeah, like plywood, you can just break through it. Well, now all the doors are, you can throw your body against the cockpit door. You're not going to open it up. So my question is, if that's been so effective from preventing people from getting into the cockpit,
Mhm.
why don't we do that so simple thing
Yeah.
for our schools?
Yeah.
Uh, but instead of, banning, so the government, I can still walk into Home Depot and buy a box cutter, which is what the
Yeah.
weapon the hijackers used. So the government didn't ban box cutters. They fortified the cockpit doors. So why does everybody think that, no, we need to ban guns and that's going to stop the problem? With over 400 million guns in this country, you will never, ever, ever be able to ban 400 million guns.
Mhm.
And even if you could, you can't ban Molotov cocktails, you can't ban machetes, you can't ban, homemade bombs.
Well, look at all the things we've talked about on the show with vehicles being
And yeah,
used as a
right.
weapon.
Yeah, wait for school to come out and just drive a car through the kids as they come out the front door. Boom, there goes 10 kids. So
The
again,
harsh reality is if you want to hurt somebody, you're gonna find a way to hurt somebody.
yeah, and I've challenged people, said, look, if you can't think of at least two ways to kill a dozen people in under 2 minutes without using a gun, you're not very bright. Because trust me, I'm not going to give anybody any ideas, but I could rattle off three or four ways to kill a dozen people in under 2 minutes without using a gun. So if you think that denying a evil or crazy person access to a particular type of weapon is going to stop he or she from killing a dozen or more people, You
No.
probably also think that you can make a balloon smaller by squeezing it in one place. If you squeeze it in one place, it's just going to pop out somewhere else.
Mhm.
Um, by the way, hopefully nobody's listening, but I'll give you one that's truly. Now, Amtrak has some of these trains that like will do 100 miles an hour along certain stretches.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen these big circular saws that the firemen use to cut people out of a car?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're metal cutting stores. Now, you can go into Home Depot. It's a gas-powered rotary store. It's got a big steel cutting blade. You can buy one for $500. Now, if I went out in rural Pennsylvania and drove along one of those railroad tracks and took my gas-powered saw out of the back of my car and went up the hill and cut, a 10-foot section out of one rail of that high-speed rail line, which would probably only take me 2 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, 2 minutes per cut, half an hour before the next train came along. What do you think would happen when that train at
Oh,
100?
the train would derail and
Yeah, and if it was on a
hundreds of
curve,
people would
if
be
it was on a
seriously
curve,
injured or killed.
and if where I cut it was on a curve, how many people you think might die if I cut a 10-foot section out of a rail?
Hundreds.
Yeah. So again, and I don't need a background check to buy a gas-powered metal cutting saw, right?
Yeah.
So, all right.
And it was my understanding that that shooting actually happened in the church, which I'm assuming was maybe didn't have the same security that the school itself. I
Well,
wasn't
actually,
sure.
he was outside the church shooting through the little narrow, you know how the church had these little skinny vertical windows?
Oh, yeah, okay.
He
Okay.
actually just shot randomly through the windows of the church,
Yeah.
just randomly through the windows. But they did lock the front door. Now, trust me, had he been able to walk into the church, instead of two dead, I think we'd be talking about
Yeah.
a dozen or more dead.
Regardless, it's tragic that this happened.
It's tragic, but the fact that they had the front door locked,
Mhm.
I think, mitigated the body count. Again, tragic. Two is tragic. A dozen would have been even more tragic.
Mhm.
All right, let's talk about the big news. So in 2022, this story, and I checked, I went back and you can do a time-bounded search when you do a Google search, right? You can
Yep.
say,
Yep.
give me the stories from this date to this date. Well, I checked in 2022, the fact that Governor Gavin Newsom declared he was going to have a budget surplus, and here's his quote: "No other state in American history has ever experienced a surplus as large as this." And he even suggested returning some of the money to the citizens of California. However, there was a significant issue. His claim was entirely untrue. The alleged 97.5 billion surplus was actually a 4-year estimate based on incorrect revenue assumptions made by his staff. In 2024, his team quietly released a revised assessment, and instead of a 97.5 billion surplus, that assessment indicated that the 2022 surplus was actually a $165 billion shortfall. Imagine you're claiming you're going to have a 97 billion surplus
So
and
apparently he's not good at math.
not good at math. Well, but guess what? Last year, when his team quietly revised the fact that no, it wasn't a 97 billion surplus, it was a 165 billion deficit, I checked, got no national news coverage. It got California coverage, it didn't get national news coverage. So, all right,
That's a pretty significant error to make.
it is. Yes, you think you're going to have a
That's
surplus?
not just like a slight rounding error. That's
No. Yeah, going from well, almost 100 billion surplus to
yeah.
165 billion deficit. All right. By the way, side note, their CalPERS, California Employee Pension Plan, is underfunded by $90 billion and it's going to run out of money someday. So if and it's not just for California state employees, every fire department and local police department, their employees are covered by that California Employee Pension Plan, and it doesn't have enough money in it to pay all the retirement promises they made. All right, how much time we got?
You got about 10 minutes.
All right, I'm going to read you. This is a speech by given Teddy Roosevelt to the Knights of Columbus in 1915, which is what, 110 years ago.
Yep.
All right, he said, "There is no room in this country for hyphenated Americanism. When I refer to hyphenated Americans, I do not refer to naturalized Americans. Some of the very best Americans I have ever known were naturalized Americans, Americans who were born abroad. But hyphenated Americans is not an American at all. This is just as true as the man who puts native before the hyphen, as a man who puts German or Irish or English before the hyphen. Americanism is a matter of spirit and of the soul. Our allegiance must be purely to the United States. We must unsparingly condemn any man who holds any other allegiance. But if he is heartily and singly loyal to this republic, then no matter where he was born, he is just as good an American as anyone else. The one absolutely certain way of bringing this nation to ruin, of preventing all possibility of its continuing to be a nation of all, would be to permit it to become a tangle of squabbling nationalities, an intricate knot of German Americans, Irish Americans, English Americans, French Americans, Scandinavian Americans, etc., each preserving its separate nationality, each at heart feeling more sympathy with Europeans of that nationality than any other citizen of the United States, of the American Republic. The men who do not become Americans and nothing else are hyphenated Americans there ought to be no room for them in this country. The man who calls himself an American citizen and who yet shows his actions that he is primarily a citizen of a foreign land plays a thoroughly mischievous part in the life of our body politic. He has no place here, and the sooner he returns to the land to which he feels his real heart allegiance, the better it will be for all good Americans. Anyway, so let's think about this. So, in uh, how many things have you seen where you've got people at these rallies waving Mexican flags? They're here in the United States
Yeah.
at a protest, waving in a Mexican flag, waving a Mexican
Yeah.
flag. Up
Yeah.
in up in Michigan, you've got whole enclaves of people who are Somalian,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
they identify themselves not as Americans but as Somalians. So what he said about uh, being detrimental, bringing the nation to ruin. If you allow that sort of thing to spread, well, no, I'm not an American, I'm Mexican, or I'm not an American, I'm Somalian.
Mhm.
Uh, that's a road you don't want to go down because
Yeah, there's a difference between like embracing your heritage, like
right,
eating our, I think where the biggest thing is eating our cultural food and saying like this is the food of my people, I eat my pierogies, versus, if you are coming to America and wanting to become an American citizen, that means you are embracing America and everything that America, like, we're not
right,
asking you to give up your identity, but like you have chosen to be an American.
right, right. You should be embracing the fact that you're an American. You should
Yeah.
embrace it and celebrate it. You shouldn't be at a protest waving Mexican flags.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
anyway.
there's a difference between embracing your heritage and embracing your pay, you want to be an
Yeah,
American. The only thing I think I might disagree with him slightly on is with, I think when we call ourselves Americans, right?
right.
I think where I maybe disagree with his statement is we definitely do put the label of Native Americans when referring to Indians and Eskimos.
Well, and that I think is almost a badge of honor that hey, you were
Yeah, that I'm not just an American, I'm a Native
Native,
American,
right? Which I think is a
which
which I think is
we
a
are
good bit,
not
yeah,
Native Americans. We are just Americans.
right. But most of us are descendants of immigrants, whereas Native
Yes.
Americans are special. They should be proud that they were some of the first people to
Yeah,
populate.
so I do disagree with the label of I think it's, again, like you said, it's a badge of honor.
Right,
They are, people who are the Indians and
right.
I guess Eskimos are considered uh,
By the way, that's
are
that's none of their Inuits, not
Inuits. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word.
Inuits. All right. And by people in Colorado, when I was living there for 25 years, they took great pride that they said I'm a native Coloradan, and that's something
Mhm.
to be proud of. Because most of the people in Colorado are imports, from other places.
Yeah.
So very few people in Colorado are native, and it's nothing wrong with being a native Coloradan.
Yeah.
All right. Um, Real quick, we're going to talk about taxpayer leaf shots, and why do we call them taxpayer leaf shots? Well, here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, explaining it to you. Let me turn this up a little bit. All right, here we go. Oh, here we go.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
All right, and here we go with a woman from Houston, single woman living alone. You hear a noise in your house at 2 a.m. How scary is that? Here you go.
Nervous. We're nervous.
Neighbors in Skyway are still grappling with what happened on their block overnight.
He shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been there.
Around 2 o'clock Monday morning, a woman called 911 saying she shot a man who was trying to get into her home. When deputies arrived, they found the man with a gunshot wound in the driveway. He was taken to the hospital where he died from his injuries.
A life is a life, and it hurts anytime a life is taken. But I mean, if you are intruding in someone's personal space, then you have coming what is coming to you. So, I mean, I'm glad she was able to protect herself.
So what are the laws in the state when it comes to using force against an intruder? Use of force is lawful if someone is about to be injured or to prevent malicious trespass. Homicide is also justifiable when the intruder was going to commit a felony or do some great personal injury to someone.
She was well within her rights. Well within her rights. And I would do the same.
King 5 did see someone being handcuffed and put into a squad car at the scene. It's unclear if that was the woman who called 911.
I'm waiting to hear, like everyone else. I'll be tuned in, ready for the news. So I really do want to know what actually happened.
And this is still an ongoing investigation, and deputies say there is no danger to the public. Reporting in Skyway, Brady Wakayama, King 5 News.
We're nervous. We're nervous.
Neighbors at Sky.
And by the way, that interesting, Washington State, did you hear that one of the grounds for deadly force is malicious trespass?
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, malicious. So clearly, if a guy, even though he's not yet in your house, if he's trying to break into your house, that is clearly
Yeah, because what are your intentions at 2 o'clock in the morning when
Yeah.
you're breaking into somebody's
you're
house?
trying to break into somebody's house
Yeah.
at 12 o'clock. So now I haven't heard the phrase malicious trespass
Yeah.
before, but clearly that reporter was citing part of the Washington state law. So clearly this guy was committing malicious trespass.
Mhm.
So I don't think there was anything that she could be charged with. Anyway, that wraps it up here. Anything you want to add before we sign
Yeah,
off?
so I looked up that story about the two what I thought were two kids shooting each other in the head, but now I have to take this back because it was two adults playing games with each other. I'm sorry, this is Darwinism right here. This is a 34-year-old and a 37-year-old guy, two guys, 37 and 34. They were shooting each other in the head wearing helmets. And as you would anticipate, it didn't go well for one of them.
What kind of guns were they using, and where did this take place?
It was in Houston, Texas last week, and it was a rifle. It doesn't say what kind of rifle, but just a rifle.
Oh my goodness.
Houston, Texas, though. I'll send you this article link. But yeah, this is Darwinism at its finest.
Yeah,
right?
Darwin Award winner. All right, yeah, please send me the link. All right. Well, producer Susan, anything else you want to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, anyway, in that case, I want to thank everybody who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your day to listen to me ramble on about the things that I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen to the podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, give producer Susan a day or two, and you'll be able to find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. With Jerzee being spelled J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or show topic, or just want to ask me to send you one of the links directly, just email me at joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and two E's. And with that, producer Susan, nothing else. I'll talk to you next week. You take care, right?
Right.
Bye-bye.